Hey, Billy, you know what's awesome?
What's that, man?
The Friday the 13th movies.
Oh, yeah.
Well, most of them, anyways.
Yeah, first couple. All right, man. So you brought this one up. Let's first introduce everybody to ourselves. I'm Billy Stewart. This is Rick Morgan. I have
Hi.
a show called You Know What's Awesome podcast. Wait, I have a show called Scary Dad podcast wherein we talk about things that are scary for like 160 episodes, and we're still working on moving forward with that. Rick is the host of many, many horror podcasts.
All of them failed, apparently, but anyways. Yeah.
so, so
Helming, we talk about Helming Power Hour. We talk a bit of some horror stuff, which we go to the horror convention at Dallas every year that we can, and that's where we kind of met up and everything, so that's fantastic. Short Bus was with Johnny Krug, who's a big horror guy, and of course that's a lot of the stuff we cover there because there's nothing better than a really bad horror movie. My new show, Rad Movie Rama, I'm pretty much covering mostly either sex exploitation or sexploitation films, drive-in classics, and good old horror flicks. So there you go. That's why we're here.
so so the question you might be asking yourself is, has You Know What's Awesome just turned into a horror movie podcast? And the answer to the question is no.
Now,
But it is October, near October, and we've been wanting to talk about this one for a while. So we put up a poll a few days ago, and this particular subject didn't even get voted on because nobody wanted to listen to it. Nobody wanted to hear about it. But we've been wanting to talk about it since before we started the show. It's probably for
yeah,
a couple of years before You Know It's Awesome showed up.
yeah.
And we love it, and it's close to our hearts. And so we're going to talk about the Friday the 13th franchise, the movies, the characters, the legacy, and yeah, all of that fun stuff. And that's going to kick us off into the next few episodes that are going to be all about horror movies, or just
Yeah,
kind of the Halloween season in general.
yeah.
So yeah, that's that's where we came from, and that's where we're going. So, what's your
Well,
favorite Friday?
uh, we're gonna start there already.
Oh,
Dang.
no, like we don't need to start there. we can not. You said well because you obviously had something to say, and I got my pen like David Letterman, where I'm just like, you know what? I'm just making scribbles over here. I'm not even writing words.
Oh, I'm just afraid. I'm just afraid if we say that immediately, then people just be like, "Click."
Yep. Like, well, I didn't like that one.
So how about this? How about what's the first memory you have of just Friday the 13th in general? What I mean, was it hearsay? Because I've got a story behind mine. So is it hearsay, or did you actually go see one of the movies? What was the first one you saw?
But my parents would not have ever brought me to a Friday the 13th
Right.
because, like, we already talked about the Beastmaster at some point, which
Yeah.
could be a whole show later.
Absolutely.
But Beastmaster being as violent and full of boobs as it was essentially a Friday the 13th movie with hairy boots and ferrets, right? Like,
Yeah.
it it's pretty violent and full of boobs, which is what a Friday the 13th movie is.
Yep.
Um, I don't know. I can't say. Well, I can. I want to hear your story first. I can say this. My first exposure to anything Friday the 13th is and was, and it took me years to figure out where the scene came from. I remember my dad was watching a movie, and I got up when I shouldn't have been up, and I came in there, and he didn't have time to either pause the VCR or change the channel, and this dude on the TV stepped into a trap, and it pulled him up into a tree, and where he was dangling, and a backwards curved machete slashed the kid's throat.
Yeah.
I remember that. That is just
Yeah.
in my mind
Yeah.
as something that would be a really, really crappy day. You would not want this to happen to you. It wasn't until probably decades later that I saw it in Friday the 13th Part 2, and I was like, oh, I've seen this one, like Marty McFly. Oh,
Yeah.
I've seen this one before. This has haunted me my whole life. So, that scene in Part 2. So,
wow.
Story behind yours.
Well, mine, I had an uncle that went and seen the original movie when it came out, and he was just describing what he saw, which, high body count, which is very unusual for any movie back then. And he just went on and on about, dude in a wheelchair and, dragging the girl's feet. I mean, I remember seeing the trailer on regular TV too and just being terrified by, there's all this carnage. And you would just hear these stories from people of certain scenes that would happen in the movie and stuff. And in 81, my mom remarried and had my own bedroom, had cable TV, wasn't allowed to watch, anything R-rated. But for some reason I knew that the first Friday the 13th was on. And I had my volume on my little TV all the way down, and I kind of flicked over to the channel. And have I told you this?
No,
have I not? Okay.
I'm having a blast.
So
I'm seeing you as like,
yeah, man.
as a little kid being like, oh my God.
Well, I turned it on, and it's the scene where she's out in the canoe, right? It's already over. This is the end of the movie. And it's the jump scare. It's Jason coming up out of the water. Dude, I lost my crap because, again, I knew nothing of this movie except hearing about the slasher scenes, right? So I'm expecting to see, that kind of stuff. And just like everybody in the theater, when he come up out of the water and grabbed her, I mean, I'm sitting there with no sound on, and I know I just went, ah! So I kind of gave it away what I was watching, but that was my first moment of seeing anything Friday the 13th. And from there on, I had to chase that dragon, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Part 2, man. Part 2 is probably the first one that I saw the entirety of. And I was blown away by Part 2.
I was going to say, because you said you had your memories. For me, like, I saw that, like, so Part 2, if Part 2 came out in, 81?
Yeah.
Like, late 81, I would have been, like, 5 or 6 years old when my dad was watching this movie. It was, like,
yeah.
I don't know how... I don't remember, like, all I remember was that machete, that knife, that rope trap. Fast forward 3 or 4 years, whatever, I'm like 9, 10 years old. Well, I had to have been 9 because Part 5 came out in 85. So I would have been 9 years old. So I would have been 10 years old when it was in the video store.
Yeah.
So go to the video store. They've got the posters for Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning. It's got the hockey mask with the light behind it.
Yeah.
And if you turn your back on the mask or on the video, it's got the one redneck dude on the motorcycle who's getting his head chopped off.
Right.
And then it's got a picture of Jason just kind of standing there and looking pissed off, and he's got the blue stripes on his mask.
Yeah.
And I used to sit there and I would look at that one, and then I'd look at Part 4 with the hockey mask with the knife stuck through the eye.
Yeah.
Just look at the video covers, because I was a little kid and ain't nobody gonna let me watch this movie. Like you say, you get what you can out of it. You talk to your friends. They've all seen it, but then they're all like, they're all full of crap too.
Yeah.
Like none of them was saying like, oh, you just stabbed him like 18 times. And like you watch it later, you're like, no, nobody stabbed him 18 times. But I remember part 5. Part 5 was current to my like, and just looking at that video case was like, oh, I have to know what's going on.
Yeah.
Like I really do. I just need to know what the story is behind this.
Yeah.
Kind of like I said, it was like Jaws 3. Jaws 3 is not the worst of them, but it's certainly not the best of them. But this is where you start, and then you track backwards.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I managed to do it. I was probably like 11 years old, and I got my parents because I had a sleepover with some my cousin and some friends. And I got them to rent us Friday the 13th, Part 5, A New Beginning. And we had pallets on the floor with sleeping bags. We were like, we're not even talking like the big old, like, nice 60-inch screen like we have now.
Right.
We're talking like a 20-inch TV inside of an entertainment center because my parents were normal. Like, we weren't super rich, but we also were, like, we had a 20-inch TV with the VCR, and they punched that thing in there. And I pretty much lost it as soon as Not Jason with the axe chopped also Not Jason with the candy bar.
Right.
I was like, well, I'm out. This is too scary for me. I can't deal. But then I came back for the boobs, and there were some of those.
Yeah.
But then they stabbed her through the eyes.
Yeah, they did.
Oh my god, dude! Like, I kind of like after that scene, I kind of crept backwards, and I couldn't do it anymore. I was like 9, like I said, 10, 11 years old, maybe at the oldest. And I like at 10 years old, I had gutted a deer. I couldn't deal with the
shears,
hedge clippers through the eyes. And so that being said, moving forward all of these years and hearing people talk all kinds of mess about Friday the 13th Part 5, I have to say, oh no, you don't understand how scary that thing actually could be to a 10-year-old.
Oh yeah.
Who's never seen shears through eyes or boobs or any of those other things.
Right.
There's a special place in my heart for the Blue Jason.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I never was a fan of Part 5 just because of having to find a reason for another Jason. But the kills in that movie are brutal. Probably as brutal as anything else that's been put on screen at that point for sure. It really delivers on the gore, man. It's up there. Yeah. So, but yeah, Part 4. I think Part 4 is where I became just a full-fledged kind of, all right, I'm all in. We would have get-togethers and, watch the tapes. So I was, probably 13 at that time. So that was right up my alley, right? That's right when you're starting to see all this stuff. But, Part 2, over the years, the more and more that I see that one, the more I like it. And I kind of like Jason with the toe sack on his head. I think it's because it reminds me of Town That Dreaded Sundown, which terrified me as a kid as well. So I don't know. There's something about that always drew me to it. And I know the hockey mask is iconic, no doubt about it. But there's something about that makes it even less expressionable, with the sack on his head. So I don't know if it's just a subliminal thing for me of why it was scarier, but I don't know. But it's one of those things where, to me, some movies Jason was cool, sometimes he wasn't. You grow to end up loving the guy, right?
Well, On Scary Dad, Scott and I have discussed Friday the 13th a lot, and when I think whenever we first started discussing it, his favorite's always been Baghead Jason Part 2.
Yeah.
And mine was always Part 4.
Yeah.
Because Part 4, I think out of the entire series, Part 4 is probably the most cohesive movie. And, like, there's a lot of plot holes and everything, but it just straight up, like, it doesn't try to explain him or, like, it just resurrects him, and then he kills people, and then he goes and kills some more people, and then that's fine. And then he's just a menace throughout the whole series.
Right.
Through the rest of the movie. Part 2, he's like redneck in a shack in the woods.
Right.
It's a frightening. But with Scary Dad, for example, we always would talk about, it's like, you can have great cinema, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's scary.
Right.
And it's like, if I'm given to pause and reflect on the sunset over a gabled roof, it doesn't. That's fine, except for I'm here to watch a horror movie, so scare me, right?
Right.
Part 2 and Part 3, I think, are the scariest out of the series.
It's definitely where you could tell that's where they were really starting to develop what this was gonna be. Even though I still don't think they really knew. But to me, Part 2 has that same gritty thing that you get out of a Texas Chainsaw or something like that. And you kind of nailed it with the backwoods hillbilly kind of thing. There's something so primitive about that always gets to me. And I always think of more 70s cinema when I think of that stuff. And let's face it, man, Jason's kind of rapey in Part 2. You know? So he's just, I don't know. There's something more menacing about it. Maybe because he's dressed like, Jethro Bodine from the neck down. I don't know.
Well, he is messed up, but you wouldn't expect somebody like you wouldn't expect a like. He's not Christian Bale. He's not American Psycho.
Right.
Like, you can't be Jason Voorhees and be all debonair.
Right.
And, that was another thing that Scott and I have talked about is, like, this drive that happened with Freddy versus Jason to turn him into kind of a, sad sack hero or whatever. Like, no. He's just a psychopath who just kills everything that comes around him.
Yep.
They say that Jason never runs. Well, watch Part 2 and Part 3. He
exactly.
runs a lot.
Yep.
He runs a lot, and he doesn't run shambling zombie-like. He actually runs with intent and succeeds.
Yeah.
Jason doesn't do this and that. No, Jason kills a dog. Right in Part 2, the little dog runs up to him, and he looks down, and like the next time they see the dog, it's like all kinds of messed up.
Didn't he throw one through the window in Part 4?
Dude, probably.
I think he does. I think he does.
Yeah, he's not. He's not nice.
Yeah, he's a killer.
That's the thing. It's
he's a killer. I mean, it's just that's where you end up messing up is when you start trying to give an explanation, right?
Mm-hmm.
All the explanation you needed was in the first movie, and he's just the entity that goes on from there. But when you start trying to keep breaking it down, and I don't know, you end up doing more damage. That's the curse of any kind of series is you try to explain too much and you just work yourself back in a corner and you're like, reboot.
Yep. Which part 6 is actually a reboot. I mean, you think about it, like they call it Part 6.
Part 6 could be the best one, man. Part 6 could be the best one.
It seriously, I still want to, like, I don't want to go to 6 yet because we're still on the horror movie side of things.
Right.
Because part 6 changed the dynamic of everything. You got Part 1, who is Pamela Voorhees, who's mourning her lost child 30 years after he died and stabbing people. It's a plausible story.
Yeah.
Part 2, not so plausible.
Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
Like, that's why Tom Savini didn't come back for part 2, because he was like, whoa, wait, no, Jason's dead.
He's
That's
dead.
the whole reason part 1 happened.
Right.
Like part 1 was a self-contained story, but he did come back for later editions.
Right.
Because the money was just too good. But, part 2 with the bag on his head, he does have some brutal kills.
Yep. Well, the whole thing that he still got his mom's head.
Mm-hmm.
That goes back to that Texas Chainsaw thing again. It's Ed Gein, right? Or Ed Gein, however you want to say it. But this guy was going around killing people because his mama and his head told him to, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's different between that and Jason Voorhees, right? Because apparently that's what he hears.
Well, in part 2, whenever they were going for pure horror, and again you have the Chainsaw Massacre, whatever. But whenever they actually do make it to his cabin and they see the shrine that he's got.
Yeah.
He's got the dead people, so he's got the cop that he buried. Which, if you want a scene of Jason running,
there you go.
There's Jason running after the cop and burying a hammer.
That hammer, man, the claw of that hammer. Woo! That's rough.
And what's her name with the Mickey Mouse T-shirt on?
Yeah.
That he kills off screen. You don't see him kill her.
Yeah.
But then she's laying on top of the cop. But then you see Annie, who's the hero from, and she gets killed at the beginning with the ice pick.
Right.
And she's all decomposed, wrapped around the shrine of the mother.
Yeah.
Like, there is a sadistic and death-worshipping sort of weirdness to Jason that they kind of lost with the rest of the series. Like, they could have gone in a completely different direction.
Right.
But,
and I think that's what bothered me about part 2 is, hey, Mom, look what I did.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing this for you. That kind of mentality thing, that's just creepy, man. And again, because it's happened in real life, Like I said, Ed Gein killing people and, because his dead mama told him to. I mean, which, how many movies were based off that guy? But, so they kind of tied that in. And then, just like what you're talking about now with the bodies being exposed, how many movies followed that trend, right? At the end of every movie, they go to where the serial killer is, and there's all the bodies laying around, or Happy Birthday to Me, or, so that became the trend, right? And I don't know, man. I like 2 a lot. 3, I think, is a lot of fun. That's when they started getting some real money, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's when they really were saying, "Hey, let's do a 3D movie."
Well, and like you said, Jason was a little bit rapey. Well, it's like Chris. She's like, I ran away from my parents. Like, completely not related to the Friday the 13th franchise in any way. Chris, the final girl in part 3.
Right.
She's telling the story, and she's like, lives in one of the lake houses, and she gets in a fight with her mom, and so she goes and runs out into the woods and just sits down and falls asleep. And when she wakes up, there's an unmasked Jason.
Mm-hmm.
Stumbles over her, wakes her up, and then just tries to kill her and chases her until she runs away and finally escapes.
Yeah.
That is horribly frightening.
Yeah, it is.
that is terrifying. And then she's like, she spends the whole rest of the time being like, oh my God, it's that guy who's killing all of my friends. It's like this dude. Like,
yep.
I told you these woods were not haunted. These woods were haunted. This is not a good idea to come here. But we're all gonna just go here and camp and drink and smoke and have a good time, even though there's this crazy malformed killer in the woods.
Who's worried about that?
Yeah, if he shows up, he shows up. If he doesn't, he doesn't.
Yeah,
but
man.
Part 3 has some killer kills.
Yeah.
And it really is, especially coming up to the end of it.
Yeah.
Was what's great is they have apparently Chris was not supposed to survive. Like they were gonna
Right.
break tradition, which is kind of what Friday the 13th did.
Yeah.
So they're like, oh, it's not a killer, it's a killer's mom.
Yeah.
Like they were gonna break all of that and have it to where Jason actually killed Chris. And they have footage of him cutting off her head.
Well, that's the thing. That they said that there's a new box set that's coming out that's actually got all the deleted gore from part 2. They didn't put it back in the movie, but they got it where you can actually see these scenes that were cut. And so there's a lot of people that's kind of hooping and hollering about that right now. So it's kind of cool that it's taken this long for somebody to say, "Oh yeah, we got that. It's over here in this box of footage." You know.
Oh, did you not hear that story?
Yeah.
Hold on. Let's take a break. We'll be right back.
Hello?
On a June night in 1980, Friday the 13th, 12 of her friends were murdered. Why should Friday the 13th, 1981 be any different? Friday the 13th, Part 2. The body count continues. 14.
All doomed. You're all doomed.
15.
God.
16. 17. 18. 19. 20. 21. 22. 23.
Sandra? Jeff?
The day you count on for terror is not over. Friday the 13th, Part 2.
Did you see that story that was just released of the guy who was trying to put footage together, and he reached out to one of the original producers? He's like, I might have that. And it was in a VHS in a box in his attic.
Yeah.
And they had to take the VHS, and he wouldn't allow it to be mailed because he didn't want it to get lost again.
Right.
So he drove to his house for like 5 or 6 hours, and he got it, but then the tape was all stuck together, so they baked it to unrelease the tape so they could, like, and these are professional tape
Right.
doing things with people.
Right.
They're like, oh, we'll just bake this VHS tape. We'll like take the tape off and just like put it in the oven and it'll be okay. Like, it's all good. But they found all of this footage that had been heretofore lost. And
Yeah.
actually, yeah, I want to see some of that.
Yeah, I know there's
Pretty
a
amazing.
lot of people that are excited about that. And the other reason that and we talked about this before we started, but what brought this to mind of why we should talk about it is they're going to re-release the original movie in theaters, and it's being remastered to be shown again. Now that's an update I saw on Facebook, so I'm assuming that it's real. But that kind of made me go, okay, now that's kind of cool, right? I mean, with a time like now when everything's kind of shut down, you know, we're starting to dust off all these classics. It's so cool to just see, hey, Gremlins is on at the theater again, you know? So, yeah, why not bring these out and dust them off and make people understand why these movies are still talked about? So, going through those early movies, they were totally horror flicks. They had the formula down. By the third movie, they had that formula down very well. Effects were getting better as they went along. And just like what you're saying a while ago, six was kind of a game changer because that's really the time period where horror movies became fun. There was a definite switch, and I almost want to say Evil Dead 2, Reanimator, something happened right in there, which made you go, hey, I can watch Reanimator and Big Trouble from Little China and get the same feeling from both of them. You know, so something happened in the horror world, and they were leaning more towards it being not only it's going to gross you out, and you're going to see some crazy stuff, but it's going to be a fun ride. And six was amazing, and but it's not strictly horror like the other ones were.
Right. Well, and that's what I was, with 5, with a new beginning.
5 is still straight up. I mean, it was brutal.
It is a brutal, like, that was probably the more Texas Chainsaw of the entire series. Like, that, the kills were mean, and like whether or not you like Roy Burns or the Scooby-Doo ending, again, my sympathies lie with the screenwriter who's being like, like, hey, we need you to write a Friday the 13th. You have a masked killer that is not Jason Voorhees in Crystal Lake. Can't be Jason Voorhees. Go. Like, okay. Masked killer kills everybody. It isn't Jason Voorhees. At the end. Like, like, what do you do?
Right.
Because back then they were just like, this is what you get. And then whoever wrote part 6, they were like, okay, well, that didn't work out. People didn't like it. So you have a masked killer in Crystal Lake who is Jason Voorhees, but he's still dead. And go. Like, oh, okay, well, then he's just resurrected.
Yeah.
Like, he's a zombie Jason.
Zombie Jason.
And zombie Jason is awesome. I've never shied away from zombie Jason. Zombie Jason is a force of nature. He's a force of not nature. He's zombie Jason.
Right.
I love zombie Jason.
I do too. To a certain extent.
I love the fact that he can bend time and space to he can completely assail an RV and take a woman's face and push it into the metal. And instead of just having a dent pop out in the RV or to have some rivets pop out, he can have a actual
indentation of her face
in the metal.
Yeah, man. That's great, man. I mean,
that is awesome.
Not to think that he would just smash her head against it and that would just be the end of it. No, her face is going to be imprinted on the outside of the vehicle from the inside. Yeah, man. That's fantastic. And that's the thing, man. They had to get so creative. I always think about George Romero talking about when they did Dawn of the Dead. He told Savini, just come up with as many ways to kill people as you can think, and we'll throw them all in the movie. And I think there's a point when they kind of had to do this here. Hey, just make up some ways that Jason can kill some people, and we'll just make it happen. So, yeah, man, I love this time period because I think after they got past 5 and it still was rolling, you could do anything at that point. And I think 6 is a pure example of that, of, hey, let's make him super Jason, make him super strong, he's back from the dead, so all the laws of the world don't matter to him anymore.
Because they didn't really before. Like, they never really explained why he could just get up from that head wound.
Right,
but,
yeah.
He did.
Yeah. But now he can just turn around and run his hand through you. He don't have to have a weapon.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Well, we did talk about Karate Kid last time.
Yeah.
I'm going to school to learn how to actually do that. Like,
right.
Like, it's this thing that you do where you just kind of curve as you punch and, like, reach in. Because Chuck Norris did it, too.
Yeah.
In Missing in Action.
It's Chuck Norris.
Missing in Action Part 2. Like, where he reached into the... Like, that was the thing in the 80s. Was like, punching into...
ripping people's hearts out.
torsos.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, man. But then we get to part 7. I'm going to say it right now. I love part 7. It is ridiculous. But it's my kind of ridiculous.
I was gonna say part 7 seems almost like a short bus sort of thing. Where
Yeah.
It's so like, well, kick us back to part 5, where it's like you got a big body count, but then you got the couple who are singing "Baby, Baby, Baby" after he like takes a bite of a bad taco,
Right.
and he's in an outhouse. It's like, dude.
Yeah.
I can imagine the writing room.
Right.
Like you got a couple guys or girls or whatever with a spiral notebook. They're like, okay, we got 2 characters to kill. What are we gonna do? It's like, okay, we're gonna put them in RV, and we're gonna give them bad tacos, and then we're gonna put them into an outhouse.
It's those damn enchiladas.
And we're gonna have them singing love songs while one guy is crapping his head off, and his girlfriend is sexually walking around the outhouse singing to him. And then Jason's just going to kill him. It's like, dude, those guys, whoever that is, deserve it. Like, that is the worst crap ever.
Yeah, it's iconic, man. I mean, people that love that movie, that's one of those scenes they love. And for me, part 7 though, I think because I went with one of my best friends, and we went to watch this movie, and we had a blast watching this movie in the theater. We weren't scared one bit. It's just the fact of, okay, who could go toe to toe with Jason? Well, it had to be somebody with some kind of powers. Okay, let's just make that happen. I mean, I just love the fact that all the way through it, it's kind of like Pee Wee Herman fighting the fat kid. It's that kind of mentality because Francis. Or it's kind of like Jason becomes Yosemite Sam, right? I hate that rabbit. I mean, you kind of get that with this. He's like, I hate that girl. I mean, she shoots nails in my face and makes a light come down and smash me in the head. The cord wraps around my neck and hangs me. And she's just standing over there. I hate that girl. We just were dying, man. We were laughing so hard. I don't know, man. I got a soft spot for that movie. It's ridiculous. But it's entertaining.
I have to say, like, when I lived in the small town in outside of Corpus Christi, Texas, we didn't go to the movies very often. And what we did, they were the dollar movies. Because
Yeah.
there was the regular movies over there, like across the hall from each other. Like there was a food court in between. There's the dollar movie and there's a regular movie. But I remember I chose, like I had a choice. I could choose like Beetlejuice or Friday the 13th Part 7.
Wow.
Friday the 13th was in the dollar movie or had just come out. Either way, because Beetlejuice was summer movie and Beetlejuice was older and Friday the 13th just come out.
Yeah.
I chose Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
I chose give it Indiana Jones Part 3. I chose wisely. Because Friday the 13th Part 7 was so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Even at that point, like Part 5 scared the Jesus out of me.
Yeah.
And then like everything, but Beetlejuice was such a great movie, like top down, like well crafted, well acted, good story. Beetlejuice actually, because I was at an age where Beetlejuice actually scared me. It had a couple of moments where they pulled their face off and were like, and you're like, oh crap. Like it's not a walking around soul searching fear, but it was enough to be like, oh shit, this is a good movie. I never had that from Friday the 13th. I'm like, whoa. The thing about part 7 is he gets the girl, right? Like in the sleeping bag.
Oh yeah.
So it sleeping bag kill. It's iconic, right?
Yeah.
Watch this. He reaches down, he grabs the sleeping bag around her head, picks her up and swings and smashes her into the tree. and then her broken head falls out of the sleeping bag.
Right.
It's like, wait a second. No, you hit her. You just, like, not saying it wouldn't hurt, but she's upside down comparatively because you would have just picked her up by the shoulders.
You got to remember, man. You got to remember, it's Super Jason. So he slung her against a tree. It probably broke every bone in her body.
Yeah, like she just falls out.
You got to remember, he stabs a party horn in a dude's eye. You know, I mean, that's a paper. It's a paper party horn, and he goes, "Hurt." But man, like I said, that's why we were just dying, because it was like, yeah, just make it happen, right? I love the fact there's a scene where somebody's running, then all of a sudden you hear him like cranking something, and he comes out there with that weed eater that's got the big circular saw blade on it. It was like, yeah!
Where did you get that from?
He's got power tools!
All right, so do we want to skip part 8? Because...
Man, I can't do part 8, man. I just can't. I can't do it. I can't do it.
For anybody who hasn't heard it before, Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, is, I think it's like an hour and 40 minutes long, and it's an hour and 20 minutes of not Manhattan.
not in Manhattan.
And it's 20 minutes of crap.
Yeah.
But the first part was crap too. So don't bother.
Yeah, it's
and
not good.
He's also wet for no reason.
Yeah.
He's just always wet.
That's the new look, right? You know, because he's been underwater. You know, the girl from part 7 had him, you know, go underwater and get, you know, stuck underwater for
She also cursed him with the ability not to dry off.
Yeah, apparently. That's why he hates her so much.
All right, so part 9.
Jason Goes to Hell.
Goes to Hell.
Yeah,
dude, I saw that movie like 3 times in the theater.
Yeah,
just because my friends were like, "Dude, it's a Friday the 13th movie, and we need to go see it." And it's not part 8. Like we were because we also liked the New Nightmare.
Yeah, I did too.
Scott didn't like the New Nightmare. He'll go off for an hour about how much it sucks, and that's fine because I go off for a long time about how things suck. But
sure,
he was not a fan of the New Nightmare.
Or what about Freddy's Dead? Did you like that one too? I saw that I saw that in the theater about 3 or 4 times because they had the 3D part in it, and you had the glasses and stuff. I thought that was kind of fun. Not great movies, but you know, again, the idea these movies had changed, right? But for Jason Goes to Hell, it's just a more horror version of The Hidden. It's really what it is.
It is. I think that after, again, like changing from part 4 to part 5, where there's kind of and then part 6, like so the Jason in part 6 is the same Jason from part 5,
right? Because
they have to dig him up.
Yeah.
No, like let's not get too deep into the fact that Jason in part 6 was only buried like 2 feet deep, because apparently that you said they had money, but they didn't have money to actually put a proper grave.
Right.
But Jason Goes to Hell was like, okay, every time Jason dies, it's a different guy carrying on the Jason name.
Right.
But that's not how it always seemed. Where was the guy?
Yeah.
Like the continuity, the backwards continuity didn't seem right. It was like, in part 1, it was his mom. In part 2, it was him. In part 3, it was him. Part 4, it was him.
Yeah.
In part 5, it wasn't him.
Right.
But in 6, it was a resurrected
him. Yeah.
Him.
Yep.
7, him. 8, him.
9, he starts off him.
But then also like every time he dies, he
becomes
takes
somebody
on a
else.
different body. It's like, wait, that doesn't make
right.
No.
Yeah.
Roy Burns did not have a Jason slug in him.
Right. Yeah, it's just
Like if that was the case, it would have been a different thing. But no, he was a stopgap.
Yeah.
So like part 9 was difficult because like I remember even in theater being like, did I miss one of them? Like, was there a crossover?
Something happened here?
I didn't see.
Yeah. I think they were just trying to find another way to keep it going. That way you could always claim it's still Jason, but it technically not be Jason. So that might have been an avenue that they were trying to go with. And like I said, it's The Hidden. I don't know if The Hidden's one of my favorite sci-fi movies, and it's exactly what this is. Body jumping, but it happens to be a serial killer, right? And instead of an alien. And come on, the scene where he's chasing the girl at the beginning, and it's all a setup, and it's the military, and they blow him up. You had to stand up and go, all right, that's a good way to start. And then
I agree.
Yeah.
Like that was because they always start the same, and
yeah.
yeah, they're like blow them up, and then they've all got the radios, and they're like, calling back to calm, blah blah blah, like target, like he's all gone. They're all congratulating the girl. They're like patting her on her back.
Right.
Good performance. Like way to go. She's like some kind of the agent of some sort.
Again, it was trying to keep it kind of fun. And of course, this is, what year was that? Was that 90 when it came out? Or was it a little later than that?
No, that was like 90, 91, something like that.
It's kind of what I thought. Maybe 92, somewhere around in there. So, the whole movie scene, the horror movie world was really changing at that point. So, that
was before Scream came and like made people appreciate what had come before.
Right. So this is that weird period.
Scream became a parody of itself as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But Scream, the Wes Craven's Scream, was a love letter to pretty much the entire 80s and 70s horror genre, being like, hey, you don't. It's like you can almost imagine Wes Craven's doing a cover of Cinderella's "You Don't Know What You Got Until It's Gone" because
right, because it hit all those buttons, man, for sure. And I think that's just kind of what was going on here. They were just trying to keep it going. I don't know, maybe it's, you hear these stories about like the Hellraiser movies, and they started just making some movies just so they could keep the rights. And you kind of wonder about that with Jason Goes to Hell. There's some ideas and concepts that are in it that I really like. And there's some I'm like, that's kind of weak. You can tell it was shot on a super budget. But come on, man, it all comes down to the ending, right? I mean, we know where we're heading with this series is, when Freddy's glove comes up out of the ground and grabs the mask and pulls it down into hell. It's on.
Yep. For what, like 10 or 15 years?
A long time.
It was a long time.
Yeah.
Then you got good old...
Jason X.
Two scenes. The frozen chick face.
Yeah.
That he bashes.
Sure.
Which is essentially just a remake of the Halloween Part 2
hot tub
scene.
Yep.
It's literally the same scene. So it gets a whole lot of accolades except for She's Cold and this one was hot. But that's an iconic kill. So it's okay. I'm like, I gotta knock it. Except for then when they say that Jason has the biggest kill count compared to Michael and Freddy, and they don't take into account because they're like, okay, I think Jason has like 165 kills or 169.
Yeah.
So in franchise wide, from part 1 to the reboot, Jason has 165 kills. I think Michael has 140 or something like that.
Yeah.
Freddy's like 110. Like it just.
Yeah.
Killing 100 people, that's worth a badge, I guess. But they don't take into account the fact that Jason stands on the bridge of that starship, and they misjudge their landing, and they clip the top and like explode an entire, basically, space station with thousands of people on board. And they just keep flying, and they look back and they just watch like all of these people just disintegrate into space. And then Jason like stabs somebody. It's like, well, that just upped Jason's kill count by like multiple
1,000. Oh yeah.
But other than that, dude,
it's ridiculous, man. It's that's one I only watch in pieces. I can't sit and watch the whole thing. I don't know. Didn't do it for me.
It's not good.
Yeah.
It's not good. What do you think of the reboot?
It was okay. That's about as.
I actually really enjoyed the reboot, and here's why. The biggest criticism I've heard from the reboot is, oh, it didn't break new ground. It didn't do anything new or interesting with Jason. And to which I say, I've been waiting for
a return to form.
A proper part, like a good, not a good, because I enjoyed part 6, but when we're talking about like part 6 and 7 are good, part 8 on suck.
Yeah.
I would like a really good part 5 to replace part 5, but then have part 5 still be there. So if there was 2 lining up, and be like, okay, well, this is the tangential part 5, and then the side story part 5. But no, just killing people in the woods. The reboot really kind of was that.
Yeah.
It didn't try to break new ground. It was just,
well, it was the reset. I mean, that's why it's called the reboot, right? Because you're trying to take a legendary, iconic character and reintroduce it to a new audience and hope that it sticks. Same thing they try to do with Texas Chainsaw, Nightmare on Elm Street, and these things are iconic for a reason already, and it's really hard to pull it off a second time. Texas Chainsaw probably got the closest,
Mm-hmm.
I think the problem is they try to do them too soon. So, I don't know. We say that, but you're looking at maybe 20 years down the road redoing. But look at the distance between The Fly and then Cronenberg's Fly, and how you kind of mesh those together. So maybe that's part of the problem, is just trying to do them too soon, because people still are watching the original Texas Chainsaw more than they are the remake.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
It's going to be hard.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard in the brave new world to separate. Sometimes good is good enough.
Right.
And I think that's what we were talking about a week or two ago, about having, like stories written by committee versus stories written by writers.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, we have this, this guy who steps into a chamber with a fly, and then he comes out of it, and then chaos ensues.
Right.
And then you have like 40 different people on iPhones being like, well, what if it's not a chamber? And what if it's not a fly? And what if it's not a guy? What if it's a girl? What if it's a dinosaur? What if it's a butterfly? And it's like, by the end of it, your vision for story is completely dissipated and gone. And then it comes out and it's like, so-and-so just wrote the sequel. It's like, I didn't do that.
Yeah.
I didn't do that. I just completely didn't do that.
Right.
Because I've seen writers post their scripts on Twitter or whatever, being like, nope, that wasn't me. This is the story I wrote.
Right.
Well, it did not have that going on. Leave me alone.
And that's kind of the problem I have with, when we talk about remakes and stuff all the time. Why not remake something that had the potential? The story was there, but it lacked either the acting or the direction or maybe even the effects. There's a reason we don't remake Jaws. I mean, I know one day they will, but it still works after all these years. That movie still works. But you take a movie like, I just covered Food of the Gods, right? Now that's a movie that you could take that idea with today's effects and stuff and a good cast. You can make a pretty banging movie out of that. But nobody's going to because it's not a name. You know, look at the last Child's Play game. Even though I kind of enjoyed the movie, they used Child's Play because it's a name that's tangible, right?
Mm-hmm.
People will go see it just because they say, "Oh, I saw that back when I was a kid," and blah blah blah, right? And we're kind of in that trap now. That's the reason we've got another Ghostbusters coming out and other stuff, because we keep crapping on the original ideas.
The thing is, and this is hitting back to last week, but if they would just make good ideas like Cobra Kai, like take the good idea,
yeah,
and continue with the good idea.
Sure.
You don't have to reboot. You don't have to reboot Daniel.
Yeah.
You don't have to reboot Johnny. Just move them forward in time.
If Jason is still a force of nature, he's probably not dead now, right? He'd still be going. Right. So just pick it up and keep going. You don't have to go back and show him getting drowned again like we've seen 4 times now, you know?
Dude, or every time they remake Superman. I'm like, dude,
yep.
If they want to make a Superman movie, they can cut half an hour out of it by putting a little push-button thing in the theater. It's like, if you don't know who Superman is, come push a button. And it'll play that little clip from the 40s.
Right.
It'll be like, the last surviving son of a dying planet gets shot through space, lands on Earth, and becomes the super powerful champion. And you're like, okay, well then, here you go.
That's all you need.
Like, move on to
yeah. And that's Spider-Man the same way. How many times we're going to retell the beginning of Spider-Man? It's like, come on, we got it. We got it.
All right, man. I think we've hit the end of the hour.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite movie?
I'm probably going to go with 4.
I'm still going with 4. It's got Corey Feldman in it.
Yeah.
It's got the Doublemint twins in it.
It's got Crispin Glover in it.
It's got Crispin Glover's awesome dance.
Yeah.
It's got the banana chick in it.
Yeah, that's right.
There's so many things about Part 4 to love that we didn't even talk about.
Right.
Because it's such a perfect movie. It deserves its own episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, you should check out Part 4.
Or let us know what your favorite one is. I mean, there's no right or wrong answer. Everybody likes different things. So, hey, if you like Part 5, if you like Part 8, if you like Part 10, more power to you, man. We're not judging. We just want you to be part of the conversation. 5, hit me up. Hit me up if you like Part 5. I'm still a fan. But all right. I'm a fan of the girl doing the robot dance. That's about what I'm a fan of. All right, so this is the moving into our spooky season. So for the next several weeks, we're going to talk about things that are scary, things that are fun, things that are scary and fun. This has not become a horror movie podcast. It has probably become a horror podcast for the next 6 weeks. But tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like. Tell us what you want to hear. And, we'll see you next week.